Here's the economic update for January 25th, 2026. So I'm going to work my way up this time. So we have our leading economic indicators for the US. This came out on January 23rd. So the US leading economic indicators are declining again. This is both for October and November data. But since September, we're no longer triggering the recession warning. So that's a good sign. Not exactly in the right direction, but it's not declining as fast as it previously was. The coincidence economic indicator and the lagging economic indicator both grew. So it's saying that we're not at a recession, or we're not in a recession currently. The LEI is pointing to a slowdown in 2026, however. So the two items here are consumer expectations and new orders are dragging down the LEI. And I'll go into a little bit more detail with that with manufacturing and consumer data. On January 8th, we got our productivity and labor cost numbers. The good news here is productivity is up 4.9% year over year. That's pretty significant, I would say. Labor unit cost is only up 1.2%. The hourly compensation is up 2.9%, and that's pretty much keeping in line with our inflation numbers at the moment, so that's not unexpected. Our retail sales numbers came out January 14th. For the year over year, they're up 3.3%, plus or minus an error of 0.5%. We're at $735.9 billion for November, and we're up 0.6% from October. A big one here for me is non-store sales are up 7.2% year over year. So that's a pretty significant increase in basically online sales. So how's the consumer doing? On January 9th, we had the survey of consumers. The index of consumer sentiment for month over month was 2.1% increase, but still down 24.7% year over year. The current economic conditions were up 4% month over month, but down 30.2% year over year. The index of consumer expectation up 0.7%, but down 20.9% year over year. So when you're looking at the consumer, if you're looking over the past year, that's why it's still dragging here. In terms of manufacturing, on January 5th, the ISM came out. There are two growing areas: electrical equipment, appliances, and components, and the other area is computer and electronics. The other 15 industries contracted, and they have a massive drop in imports over the course of this year. Our GDP, we had first quarter of 2025, we had a negative quarter. I think this was impacted by having a bunch more imports trying to get there before the tariffs took effect. And if you look, you have GDP, you have consumer spending, you have investments, you have government, you have exports minus imports. So if you get rid of the imports later on, you would have higher GDP numbers. And if you import a lot of goods before the tariffs, say first quarter, you may have a negative quarter. We only had one negative quarter, so this would not classify as a traditional recession if there were to be one. There is an ongoing, hypothesis that from 2022 to basically first quarter of 2025, there may have been a rolling recession where manufacturing took a hit for a number of years, the tech industry took a hit for a bit, and other industries have taken hits here and there, but not all at the same time. So they were able to offset each other throughout that time period. Second quarter of 2025, we had a very robust 3.8% growth. Third quarter has been revised up. This is the highest in 2 years now at 4.4%. We've had very robust growth over the last couple of quarters, and they're estimating we're now going to be around 5.4% growth for the fourth quarter of 2025 for our GDP. So that's showing that we may actually have very robust, strong growth in our economy. However, not everybody's feeling it the same way. I know there's a lot of anxiety. There's a bunch of layoffs looming. There's been hiring freezes throughout most of the industries, and that's been reported in the Fed Beige Book in November. So how are you doing with all of this? Do you think it's better than it was a couple of quarters ago, or is it getting tougher? Are you worried about job loss? If you're looking for a job, has it been more difficult or easier for you to find a job? Leave it in the comments below. Let people know what industry you're in. The Fed on December 10th had an announcement They made the decision at the FOMC meeting to cut rates by 0.25%. So they cut the Fed funds rate. Why did they do that? So some of the concerns they have, yes, inflation is above their target of 2%. However, people are finding it more and more difficult to find jobs, and there's a lot of hiring freezes. So they're not seeing massive layoffs, but they're also not seeing a lot of hiring. So especially for younger workers, it's harder to get into the workforce. If you lost a job, it's also difficult to find a job. On December 1st, they stopped quantitative tightening, which meant they stopped allowing bonds and things to roll off their balance sheets. On December 12th, they started something that people weren't really paying attention to. This is the start of reserve management purchases. This means they're starting to buy up bonds and increasing their balance sheet. They don't want to call this quantitative easing because that causes panic, but they want to make sure that they have liquidity in the market. That means that there's not enough money going around between the banks and things like that. I think of it this way. It's like someone saying, oh, I'm not eating lunch, I'm just having a snack. You're still eating. Sort of like RMP, we're just buying bonds, but we're not QE where we're buying long-term bonds. We're just buying some bonds, but it's like a snack. It's not like a meal. We're not really eating. It's kind of the same thing to me. We'll see if this continues past April. If it continues past April, I would consider it QE, not just RMP. When you have things like this happening, it's important to own assets because your cash becomes worth less and less over time. Assets tend to go up in value over a longer period of time. And I would expect inflation to go up, not down, in about 12 to 18 months, because as we start putting more money into the market, more money into the bond market, which is actually larger than the stock market, inflation will tend to heat up, and then wages tend to lag behind. So the next FOMC meeting is going to take place on January 28th. There's about a 90% probability of they do nothing in terms of rates, and there's about a 10% odds of a rate cut of about 0.25%. I don't think they're going to do anything. I think they're just going to wait for more data. In terms of inflation, on January 13th, we had our consumer price index of 2.7%. This stayed the same. Consumer price index core, that's minus food and energy, that's 2.6. Again, the same. This is looking back at December data. On January 22nd, we had the personal consumption expenditures. This is at 2.8%, and core minus food and energy is at 2.8% as well. This is just a slight increase, and that's from November data. For January 14th, we had our producers price index of 3%, and the core, which is minus food and energy, at 3.5%. This is again from November data. You start generally seeing the producers go up or down, and then the rest of them follow, because the people making the parts or making the machines or making the food or whatever the goods and services that you're being provided, if they see an increase or decrease in the price of something, then that trickles down to the consumer eventually. Notice that the US was shut down between October and November for about 43 days, so that's why we still have some lagging data from November. Do recognize that all of these are above the 2% target. So remember, the Fed has a dual mandate of stable prices. Their target is 2%, and maximum employment. So keeping unemployment as low as possible, making sure people can find jobs. So moving into jobs next. So jobs, on January 9th, the BLS announced that in December, they added 50,000 jobs. November was 56,000. And October lost 173,000 jobs. Do recognize for the majority of months that we've had revisions down from initial estimates. So November was revised down by 8,000. October was revised down by 68,000. For an independent source of job numbers, the ADP announced on January 7th that the U.S. had about 41,000 jobs added, not 50,000. So I'm expecting the 50,000 to possibly get revised down further in the future. Do note that we're about 4.4% unemployment right now, and there's 7.5 million people without jobs looking for jobs. Remember, I said it's getting hard for younger people to get into the workforce. So we're now at 15.9% unemployment for 16 to 19-year-olds. So that's year over year, that's been going up. For African Americans, it's 7.5% unemployment. Year over year, that's been up. Year over year, we have an additional 397,000 people that have been jobless for more than 6 months. This now accounts for about 26% of everybody that's unemployed. They've been unemployed for more than 6 months. Another thing here is that we're finding that there's an additional 980,000 people working part-time jobs rather than full-time due to economic reasons because they can't find full-time work or their hours are being cut or something along those lines. So you don't really want to see that number going up. That's not usually a good sign. On January 8th, there was a report that came out about 1.2 million job layoffs occurred within 2025. The only years it's less than were 2001, 2002, 2003, 2008, 2009, and 2020. All of those years have something in common, if you can guess. They've been recessions or immediately following the start of a recession. So they're not usually good signs. On January 7th, we got our JOLTS report. There are 7.1 million jobs available in the US. And if you think there's 7.5 million people that need jobs that are looking but do not yet have jobs, there's about 1.1 people that are unemployed looking for a job for every job that's available. So there are less jobs than there are people looking for jobs. So that's where the Fed is getting a little bit concerned about the labor market. The other concern here is that there's 885,000 less jobs available now than there were a year ago. So part of the reason why the Fed was raising interest rates is to cool down inflation and reduce the amount of jobs available so that basically we didn't get a wage spiral where people get paid more, then they pay more, which inflation then goes up, then people need more money to live. So they've been successful in that. Now the Fed, after drying up the jobs, they need to allow a bit more money into the system and make credit a little bit easier so people spend more money, so then people start hiring again. So with all this information, what am I doing? Well, if you've watched the channel, it doesn't really change that much. So I make sure that I have at least a 6-month emergency fund. So that's going to be in high yield savings or CDs, things like that I can get easy access to. And it's also FDIC, so it's guaranteed in some way. For money, if I was approaching retirement or I was about to stop working, any money I need for a major purchase, say like a house, car, something like that, that money belongs more in a high yield savings or a CD. That's not something I would invest. Any money I don't need for at least 5 years, that's what I'm investing. Because I know that the market can go up, it can also go down for a period of time. So I use dollar cost averaging, I take the emotion out of it, and I put about 70 to 80% into the S&P 500, about 10 to 20% in the total international stock ETF, and about 0 to 10% in bonds. Right now I am buying some bonds. The reason being is that bond value is inversely proportional to the interest rate. So as interest rate goes down, yes, bond yield goes down, but bond value goes up. I'm not trying to get the bond payments. What I'm trying to do is drive up the bond value. So if I believe that the Fed will continue to drop rates and to buy up bonds, bond value should go up over time. I do also hold a very small percentage in the rest. This is speculation at this point. So about 0.1% in options. I have a SPY put option for June of 2026. So if the S&P 500 drops in value, I make money. And then I could sell that off, or I could sell my shares at a guaranteed price. So this is basically like insurance. And I also have a TLT call option for 2027. This is for 20-year bonds. So if the Fed starts buying up long-term bonds, not the short-term bonds, but if it starts quantitative easing again, then that should shoot up in value. So we'll see if that happens. So that's a bit of speculation on my part, but I picked something a bit out into the future. I also hold about $200,000 in silver, gold. I have aluminum. I make my own body armor, so I have copper suits of armor, steel suits of armor, that sort of thing. Lead, brass, all those different metals. And I've just acquired them when they were very cheap. So silver I bought when it was like $15 an ounce. It just hit over $100 an ounce. And then gold was less than $1,400 an ounce. Gold is now closing in at about $5,000 an ounce. Even the copper I bought when it was like 80 cents a pound, and now it's over $5 a pound. Aluminum, it's just scrap aluminum I melt down into ingots. So I have a lot of metals, but it's not like I'm continuing to invest in it. It's already a significant portion of my savings, I guess you could say. So part of the reason why silver is going up so much is China is limiting the export now of silver as a metal used for industrial purposes, as well as it's used for investments as a precious metal. It is the world's best conductor, so that can't really be replaced. Copper is close second. It's like 94 or something percent of the conductivity of silver. Silver can also be used for mirrors, other electronic components, and things like that, as solar panels and whatnot. So it's a very useful metal. And China is one of the main producers in the world. So then if that limits the supply, then basically if you have the same demand, limit the supply, price goes up. Also, for industrial uses, they can't really wait to buy silver, unlike investors. So they have to buy it as they're using it. They can't really wait. Otherwise, they can't make the products. And then gold is also being purchased by several different countries. Part of the reason I think is people are a little concerned about what's going on geopolitically. So then precious metals tend to go up during geopolitical issues. So I have another video on this. It goes into more detail of gold and silver and precious metals and why they're going up. Central banks buying up the metals, worrying about decentralizing or moving away from the US dollar, especially BRICS nations trying to get to their own currency, or at least a basket of goods to back up their currency, such as gold, silver, oil, things like that. If you'd like to watch that video, it goes into more detail. I'll put a link in the description below. Thank you for watching. If you've enjoyed this content, please subscribe. I cover a lot of topics to help people where I show you how to make more money, how to save, especially on taxes, how to invest, how to start businesses for very little money up front, and how to reduce your risk. If any of those topics interest you, please subscribe and have a great day.